Well, usually the components you need to be successful are policy or a law in place, and then you've got to have the personnel to execute it, and then you've got to buy the right IT equipment to make this stuff work. My first question would be, are there changes in law that you would recommend that do not give you the ability to be successful?
I think there's definitely room within the existing law on the policy side, implementation of people side, that definitely allow us the flexibility to be successful. I think the fact that we have...
So within existing law, you have the authority by law and ability to do what you need to do to be successful? I
do believe so.
Okay.
The challenge I think we face is probably around budgeting and thinking about how do in this, I know this is not an appropriations hearing, but how from a budget standpoint is our IT dollars spent. One of our inhibitors, I think, on implementation of IT is that oftentimes for most agency it's single year spend, and without being able to extend that spend.
Well, then there's something missing too, because you said you have people who have great ideas, very great capabilities, but they don't proceed. So somewhere they're not getting the policy, which would either be set from your level, which you just said, when you give them the authority, they run around with a paper. So somewhere we're missing the ability to move forward. The second thing, Mr. Powner, on the IRS, you mentioned IRS, and we get into personnel, and Mr. Cummings, I think, mentioned this too. You've got to have the best personnel. You said we have many of them, but sometimes we have turnover, we don't keep them, or we don't attract them. When this committee worked on some reform of IRS years ago, I worked on that. One of the problems we had these very expensive IT systems and computer massive operations, but we weren't retaining or able to recruit or maintaining and keeping folks that could do this work. We came back and changed the parameters of being able to hire people. Sometimes in the private sector, you can make 3 and 4 times what we were paying them. So do we have the ability to hire people and pay them and retain them from your experience?
Yeah, IRS is a good example, and you're right. They were the poster child for years, and then there was a fair amount of congressional interaction, and there was critical position pay granted at IRS, and a number of those positions were granted towards the IT professionals. So their pay was bumped up, and then also when you mentioned about continuity of leadership, over the last 9 years, they've had 2 CIOs. One was there for 4 years. He's the current CIO at DHS, and the current one's been there for more than 4. So the turnover is a big deal.
I know we did that for IRS, and I know I worked on something for a CFO, actually, in transportation, because we couldn't get one or retain one. Government-wide, though, do we still have a problem as far as this personnel issue and the flexibility to retain and pay people?
Well, turnover is a big deal because currently, I think the average CIO, it's around a 2 years, and they're in and out. So, and that varies a little bit depending on how you break it down by political appointees and career, but not much. But on average, it's about a 2-year turnover.
What do you think, Van Rugel?
Yeah, I think there is quite a bit of turnover, but the essence of a lot of what we try to do is institutionalize best behavior and best practices in a way that will kind of mitigate some of the turnover.
Well, we can look at that. But and then if you said DOD has $2.2 billion worth of potential savings, is that what you said, identified?
Yeah, that was when you look at their data center consolidation efforts, their current plan projects $2.2 billion in savings when
and why isn't that moving forward, or is it?
It is moving forward. In their last public budget submission, they represented, I think, around or slightly over $300 million.
The balance of the federal government is $3 billion identified in savings. That billion just beyond defense doesn't seem realistic. I think there's probably a lot more room. Wouldn't you agree?
I think we're at the tip of the iceberg on some of this, yeah.
Okay, and finally, maybe for the committee you could submit, now I'm fascinated by Obamacare. I just came from transportation, government buildings, they came to us. I guess we passed the law that allowed them to acquire a building to house 5,000 bureaucrats, just the folks that are going to be administrating Obamacare. I'm interested to know, they're going to have to set up IT systems and everything. Maybe you could provide the committee with information that you have on where they're going with that, because this is going to be a huge agency, a huge operation, and requiring a lot of IT investment. Maybe you could share that with the committee. I'll ask you. You don't have to respond. Ms. Maloney?
First of all, thank you very much.